Well, good morning, everyone. Thomas Montgomery here. We get together most weekday mornings at 8 o'clock Central to talk about strategies, tips, techniques, share success stories. But essentially, we talk about the grant, we talk about the startup business funding package, we identify what we do, which is to help create fundable businesses, and we answer questions, whether you're a client, a prospective client, a distribution partner, or even a prospective distribution partner. Today, we're going to talk about some best practices, and I emailed some of those to you in advance, and here they are on the screen shared. So we're going to go through these one by one and have some dialogue. So I certainly appreciate those of you that are active as distribution partners, and many of you have contributed your tips of wisdom of what's working for you, and allowing us to share that with others. So we're going to go through branch best practices. We'll go through one by one. I'll read it off and then we'll discuss it. All right, so the first branch best practice. All right, well, Paul's got a question already. So Paul's asking, he's not a branch, how do you become a branch? So on chapmanloanprogram.org, if you're not a current distribution partner, it's right here. It's easy to sign up to be a distribution partner. These three links are additional information. This describes the 4-phase process, which we're going to talk about in a minute. This describes the sales process, also where you can get leads, and this discusses how you make money. So thank you, Paul, for that. Okay, so first off, first best practice, treat your role as being the CEO of a branch office as a big deal, because it should be a big deal. I think some of you're dismissive. It's like, well, yeah, it's something kind of nice, but it's not a big deal. Well, if you follow the best practices that we're talking about today, it should generate, your branch meaning, should generate at least $100,000 a month. Now, again, there's two types of people. Some people will say, oh, that's too good to be true, because they've never made much money before, but it's reasonable and attainable, and we have the economic model here to show you. Others say, yeah, this is great. We've got a unique offering. We're going out and solving a problem. It's legal, it's ethical, it's effective. But regardless, if you have already signed up, which is done through the top link here, if you've already signed up to be a distribution partner, you own a branch office. Now, you can ignore it, you can deny it, you can put your head in the sand, or you can take advantage of the income potential that you have. I mean, it's up to you. But it's no different than if you and I went and bought a Domino's pizza franchise. And of course, we're not a franchise, but you and I could go buy a Domino's pizza franchise and we could never open it. We could choose to not sell any pizzas. We could just see it sit there as a money pit, or we could get active and sell pizzas and follow the plan. And so we have a plan here that's much more profitable than owning a Domino's pizza franchise, but you need to be engaged. So that the first bullet is a mindset. Where is your mind? Now, I know so many of us are busy with maybe other commitments, family, other work, or what have you, health issues, whatever life may have in front of you. I understand that. I'm not some master of time management, so I have a great way to help you have an extra 4 hours during the day. You'll have to figure that out. But as long as you realize, you should realize, if you've completed this agreement, we're committed to you, and you should be committed to your business, right? It's not a job. It's owning what should be a very profitable, legal, ethical, effective business. And if you're not following that mindset, you probably will not be successful. Probably the rest of this doesn't matter if you don't have that mindset. So furthermore on that, it's important to understand what it is that you and I do. We solve problems, and the problems that we solve are for small business owners, entrepreneurs, whatever descriptor you want to use. What is it that we do? We build financial literacy and we increase access to capital by creating fundable businesses. So the startup program is the resource. So questions or comments on the first bullet. If you can type it into the Q&A box of Zoom, it's like a chat box. Anyone have any thoughts on that? Because I believe some of you see the opportunity and you're treating it like this, but some of you may not be. So I'm interested in your feedback, your perspective. So Sarah makes a point that time management's always an issue, and so I do understand that. And when you become a branch office, we anticipate a 30-day ramp up period. So that's kind of built in. However, frankly, from the day that you open your branch, we should be able to start enrolling clients and making money. I think once you see the money flowing through, it's a lot easier to allocate time and commitment to it. So let's go ahead and move to the second bullet, which feeds off Sarah's point. I wholeheartedly believe that each of you as branch owners, your branches should generate at least 100,000 a month. That's what the bullet says here. I really, really believe it. And if you don't understand the economics, then again, you can come to chapmanloanprogram.org and go down here to this bottom link, which talks about the economic model, which is from one of our prior trainings. But I think if you would just take that mindset for 1 month, at the end of the month, I do believe that you will have generated $100,000. And I think it's going to be pretty hard for you after you have $100,000 month to say, oh, this is just a hobby. This is just a little side gig that I'm not going to give much attention to. But because 100,000 a month is a lot of money. Maybe not to you. I know a lot of you are very successful. We got Richard on here. Richard runs one of the largest chambers of commerce in the country. So an extra 100,000 a month to Richard, yeah, he's not money driven, I understand. But for most of us, an extra $100,000 a month, that's gross income. Of course, there's always expenses to run a business. It's a big deal. So if you could follow these best practices for 1 month, let's just do it for 1 month, make 100,000 and then reevaluate if you want to keep following the best practices. But it's you need to see the fruit of your labor, but there has to be some critical mass of activity. And so when we put together these best practices, and again, I want to thank many of you that contributed to this, it's meant to be, here's a checklist. Follow this checklist for 1 month and you'll make 100,000 with your branch. So any questions, any other questions or comments on our first two bullets, which kind of link together? Treating this like the business opportunity that it is, and then putting a specific dollar amount. So I'm curious, how many of you, based upon your current position, or your current statistics, we're at March 15th, we're approximately halfway through the month of March, how many of you feel like that your branch is on track to generate 100,000 this month? So Bernard, Charles, Christina, Eric, we have a big group. Ernestina, Gilbert, Jeanette, yes or no into the Q&A box. Jenny, Larry, Marilyn, Pauline, Richard, Robert, Sanya. So if you are, great, keep it up. But if not, we may want to really stay attuned to some of these best practices, make some tweaks, and get it on track, because it should be $100,000 a month gross income business. So for any business, it doesn't matter if we're selling mufflers or we're selling donuts or in any business, we must have leads. We must have leads. If we don't have leads, we're not going to be successful. And I commonly talk to many of you who are a little less business savvy. And when I ask, well, how does your lead pool look like? What I'll commonly get is like 3 names. And that's horrible, right? Can you imagine, again, let's use a Domino's franchise analogy. Can you imagine you and I going and buying a Domino's pizza franchise and say, well, we got 3 people that we think might buy a pizza today? That'd be horrible, right? There's no reason to think on that small a scale. Typically, I think what's happening is some of you are experienced in running businesses, which is great. Some of you aren't, which is fine. Sometimes people that are not experienced running businesses, all they can think of leads are personal relationships that they have. Is it mama? Is it papa? Is it the guy down the hall? Well, this isn't MLM. This is not network marketing, and so certainly you can sell to your close relationships if you want, but that's not the main gist. And so it links to this next bullet. There is no shortage of small business owners that want and need funding. There's no shortage of them. In other words, there's lots and lots and lots of them. We've shown you where to get the leads, right? Again, it's part of this training right here, which is on Chapman Loan Program. This is not new. This has been here. And now we ask everyone that's coming to us saying that comes to us and says, hey, I want to be a branch office. I want to participate in the Opportunity Fund. We do 2 things. We say, here is the link, but before you sign that link, watch the 3 training videos so you know how it works, because we want to work with motivated and knowledgeable people. Well, if for some reason you've gotten to this point and you've not watched this training on the sales process, I encourage you to do so, because amongst other things, it addresses where to easily get leads. We need lots of leads. Now, that shouldn't be interpreted to say, oh, we're not going to close many of the leads, so we have to have 1 million people to close 1 or 2. I'm not saying that at all. Actually, your close percentage should be very high, and I'll talk more about that in a moment on the next bullet, in fact. But you need lots of leads because there are lots of leads. What a normal business would do is they would first describe who is their target market. And your target market is then your population to pull from, those that you need to reach out to. So let's go back to Richard. Richard runs a big chamber of commerce in the Midwest. Well, who's his most obvious leads? Chamber members, because he has a sphere of influence. Some of us aren't as fortunate as Richard, so some of us need to go get leads from other sources, which again, we can learn how to do that right here on the 3rd bullet. But we need lots of leads for any business, and for this business as well. Some people will enroll, some won't, and we'll talk about that process in a moment. But some will sign up now, some will sign up later. But we need leads. And Jenny's asking, how many leads should we have? Well, I don't know that there's an exact number, but I would work backward. Who is your target market? Is it new home-based businesses that have formed in the past 30 days in the state of Tennessee? I'm just kind of making that up, but you can, of course, query Data Axle Sales Genie and get that number if you wanted. So how many are there? So let's say it's 1,000 new home-based businesses in Tennessee formed monthly. I'm making that up. I don't know. Well, that's your lead pool. So how are you now reaching out to those? Because if you identify your target market first, then you know where your leads should come from. Sometimes I feel like some of you are running your branch so casually, so nonchalantly that you're just, there's not a focus, there's not a plan, there's not an identified target market. So we need to understand, who do you want to target? You want to target women-owned businesses, veteran-owned businesses, home-based businesses, certain industries. It's up to you. But regardless, there's no shortage of leads. And if you don't have a lot of leads, then that's a problem. I was talking to one of our branches, and I'm not exaggerating at all. I was talking to one of our branches yesterday. She's in the hospital. She scheduled a call with me for yesterday. And I don't think she was in the hospital when she scheduled it. She's been in the hospital for 4 days. And so I called her, and she didn't sound too energetic. And when she told me her circumstance, I'm like, well, I apologize. We can reschedule. No. This is important. So she's there working on her leads list, sitting in the hospital bed because she was scheduled to get released either late yesterday or today. So I'm not saying you have to be that heroic, but again, there's many people in our society that don't make $100,000 a month. You have the option, you have the choice, and I think that's what's key for you to decide. Do you want to make 100,000 a month? If so, we've got the platform to do it. Now, if that's not a priority of yours, then I mean, you need to pick whatever your priorities are. But if we want to have a successful business of any type of business, we need to have leads. We need to have lots of leads. And in our model, it's awesome because you don't have to be a Richard with the big database to market to. We know exactly where to get leads. And again, that was covered in this training. So you can go back and see it. All right, now once we have a lead, depending upon how the lead's generated, one of our top performers is doing Facebook marketing, and he's generating about 100 leads per day. That's what he tells me. I don't know. I believe it to be true. About 100 leads per day through Facebook marketing. And so that's one option. Not the only option, but that's one option. It's like the opposite of what Richard's doing. Richard runs a CEO. He's got a chamber directory. This other gentleman, he doesn't run a chamber, so he has to go find leads. So he's doing paid Facebook marketing. It's working remarkably well. The point on this bullet is if you're doing some sort of marketing to generate a lead, or even Richard, let's say Richard puts it in the chamber newsletter and someone responds. What we definitely need to do is respond to the inquiries quickly and respond via phone. Now, this slaps in the face. I know some of you are like, oh, no, I want this to be passive. I want a passive sales model. Well, I don't think when you're talking about money and this much money that it's going to be passive. So if you don't want to be the person that's interfacing with someone on the phone, then let's get someone else to do it. So I'm not saying you have to do it, but someone on your team, in your organization, someone that we provide, somehow, somewhere, we need to connect with the prospects on the phone. I don't think that they're just going to go sign up and send you money based upon emails, text, or websites. So we need to be clear on this. Now, we periodically will have someone that's a really good online marketer that will prove that to be wrong. But in general, people are going to want to talk to someone first to make sure it's not a scam, to make sure it's legitimate, to have their questions answered. I was talking to Mel yesterday. Mel is one of the most sophisticated marketers that we have of all of our branch CEOs. And Mel said laughingly when I had a 2-hour conversation with Mel and one of his team members last night. And Mel said, people don't read, right? So you could give your prospects everything in the world in writing, but it won't work because most people don't read. So you need to talk to them. So that's the next best practice. What are your comments or questions on the importance of talking to your lead? Is that okay? So again, we've got a bunch of you on. Andrew, does that sit okay with you? Or is that inconsistent with what you want to do or what you have time to do? Bernard, is that okay for you to talk to your leads? And I'm not asking this question sarcastically, but I think some of you come to us with the expectation that you want a completely hands-off process. I don't think it's going to work that way. So most likely it's not. So if you don't want to be the person talking to the leads, that's okay. Let's build a model together to have someone else talk to your leads for you. So any questions or comments on this bullet, this best practice? Okay. Pre-qualification. I think some of you are so smart and so experienced, you make it too complicated. You get so involved with the client story, it consumes too much of your time, and you're doing unnecessary work. There's 2 pre-qualifying questions we need to ask, and only those 2. It's not, oh, what's your credit score? It's not, oh, tell me about yourself. And again, if you want to talk about those things, you can, But those are not the required pre-qualification questions. There are two. The first of which is, are you looking for funding to start or grow a business? Yes or no? Yes or no? Are you looking for funding to start or grow a business? If you're not looking for funding to start or grow a business, then you could say, well, do you know anyone else that might be if you want? But the bottom line is they're not a lead if they're not looking for funding. I suspect you, just like I do, on an average day, I'll get 2 to 3 loan brokers calling us. They'll call the main number and they're trying to get us to accept MCAs or some sort of funding. And so essentially they'll ask this question a little bit differently. And my answer is no, we don't need to borrow money. We don't need that. We operate profitably, so we're good. So then that ends the conversation. Sometimes they'll just abruptly hang up. I'm not suggesting you do that, but that's the first pre-qualifying lead. Now, it could be that where you're getting your leads from, which we discussed over here, that has already been determined. So that helps. But regardless, that's the first of 2 pre-qualifying questions. The second is, oh, okay, well, great. You're looking for funding to start or grow a business. Great. Can you tell me, is your business fundable? Now, that's a much more complicated question, right? Because most people don't know what you and I know. You and I know exactly the formula for funding. You and I know exactly what it takes to have a fundable business. Now, if you say, whoa, I'm not so confident on that, then that is addressed here. That's part of the training that you should have completed. And I'm not ragging on you, but you should be familiar with that. If not, you're missing the guts of what we do. So after our training today, or whenever it's convenient for you, this training module will make sure you understand what it takes to have a fundable business. So what we're looking for is, if they already have a fundable business, I mean, they can still enroll, but the truth is they don't really need us. They should just be down at the bank right now, filling out the paperwork, getting the wire sent to them. But you and I know that that's not where most businesses are. So we're looking for yeses here, and we're looking for no's here. But we do realize that most people won't really know what it means to be fundable. So you'll need to educate them. Remember, we talked about building financial literacy up here, because most people don't know what you know, what we cover in the 4 phases. So that leads us to the next bullet. We strongly recommend, we don't require it, but we strongly recommend using the 4 phases, and I'll get more specific on that, to educate your prospects, because that's going to help them come to their own conclusion if they're fundable or not. A lot of people just, bless their heart, that they just don't know. They're like, oh yeah, I've got an EIN, I'm fundable. Well, that is a small part of being fundable, right? There's much more than that. So you could do one of 2 things with this. We should have provided each of you an editable graphic, in other words, an editable document that describes the 4 phases that you can put your information on and you can use as talking points, whether you're in person or share it with a prospect, email it, text it to them, and then talk to them about it. So you could do that. Or if you're not quite ready for that, we have provided you an on-demand video to use, and it's actually located right here. So let me go ahead and pull it up for a moment. Hopefully it'll start. Here we go. And of course we get the commercial. We'll get past that here. So skip the commercial. I'll pause it. So this isn't, I wouldn't consider it 100% white label, but it's pretty close. And so you could technically play this for your prospect. I guess in a perfect world, you would stay on the line with them to answer questions, but this will do the heavy lifting for you. It describes what the startup program is, what it includes, the process flow. So going back to where we were, you have great resources, very effective resources to use to explain to a prospect what we do. We recommend using the 4-phase document. So you can either use an editable version of this and talk yourself, or you could literally share with them this video. You click share and it'll pop up the YouTube link, and then share that with them. But we need to educate the prospect of what it means to be fundable, as well as what we do and how it works. We've been talking the last couple of days about that you and I have the recipe for funding, and we provide the ingredients necessary for that recipe. That's pretty freaking awesome. But that's a very general way to describe it. The 4-phase graphic tells the story. How many of you are using the 4-phase document on a regular basis? So Andrew, or you, Bernard, just looking for a yes or no in the Q&A box. Charles, Christina, Eric, Ernest, Ernestina, Gilbert, Jeanette, Jenny, Larry, Marilyn, Pauline, Richard, rest of you, yes or no? Yes or no? And if it's no, it's okay. I'm not harping on you, but if any of you are using something that's more effective, let us know. We have a new branch. She just came aboard, and she was looking for, what does she use to explain to the prospect what we do? This is the answer. And again, you can use it one of two ways. You can use the graphic yourself and talk, you do the talking, or what you could do is use the video and play, right? And we'll do the talking. All right, so let's move forward here. We're almost through the best practices. In our society, people want immediate results. And so, look at the growth of Ozempic, for example, for weight management. I know it has other medical benefits, but it's going gangbusters, right? Because it's something that doesn't require much of the patient's time or energy. They don't have to exercise. They don't have to have a lot of self-discipline, but they lose weight. People want fast, easy, and free in general. So in terms of the fast, and we added this after we emailed out to everyone because we realized we missed it. I do think it's important to clarify to your prospect, hey, and it's mentioned here. We talk about apply for first tranche financing in phase 1, and it's the first bullet over here. But my point in this part of our discussion is just really emphasize that people want immediate results, because you're going to be asking them to pay something, which we'll talk about in a moment, to enroll, but they're going to make more money than they spent very quickly because of the first tranche. That's the point there. There's 2 price points that you as a branch CEO can charge when individuals enroll. You can charge them the normal $2,500, $2,500, or you can just collect a $500 down payment. For those of you that aren't quite as confident, that aren't quite as strong, I would recommend going with 500 because it's a smaller amount. It's easier to get someone to commit to spending 500. They still get the same benefits versus 2,500. But I will tell you, most of our strong producers collect the full 2,500 up front. So it's up to you. You're the CEO of your branch, right? We've covered that. But to make it easy on yourself, making it a smaller price point will allow you to enroll more people, because more people have $500 than they have 2,500. And then also, there's just less perceived risk. And frankly, if they can't afford $500, they're not in a very good position, right? Because they could pay you via Cash App or Venmo or Apple Pay, Stripe, credit card, whatever way your branch is collecting money. So frankly, if they can't even afford 500 or pull it together in short order, they may not be the best prospect anyway. Next best practice is make the $500 that we talked about, which is their out of pocket to get started, make it a refundable deposit. So remember, as the branch CEO, you control the terms and conditions of your client agreement as well as pricing. And so what we've seen a number of you do is make that 500 a refundable deposit. So in other words, they get it back after they complete the 4 phases. Remember the 4 phases, phase 1, 2, 3, and 4. So in other words, when they're all done, they get it back. That invariably is more attractive to a lot of prospects because a refundable deposit just sounds better than a non-refundable deposit or a fee. So again, you can accomplish that very easily. Jeffrey's asking a question about that. Well, doesn't that reduce his profitability? Not necessarily, because Jeffrey, remember, you're controlling the performance fee if you want to add one for the clients. In other words, after they raise capital, then you're getting paid a performance fee. And remember, we discussed that on the economic model training. Well, theoretically, you could increase your performance fee enough to absorb making that refundable, and now you've made it more palatable for the prospect. So no, it doesn't have to reduce your profitability. All right, second to last best practice is provide guaranteed funding language in your client agreement so they have no risk. So some of you are doing this, some of you aren't, it's up to you. But obviously it's all about addressing the psychological aspect of getting a client engaged. So we've already pre-qualified them. They said, yes, they're looking for funding, and no, their business isn't currently fundable. So they're going to need help, right? They can't just go down to Wells Fargo and get their 100,000 or 500,000 or a million. They need help creating a fundable business, which of course is what we do as described here. So with that being said, you can certainly add language, and we can help you with that language so they know that there's no risk. And then the last bullet is when you are sharing your agreement with your prospects, don't, and again, I apologize, but don't be lazy. Don't just say, oh, here it is, or I'll email it to you and I'll follow up with you. That's a horrible decision. Best practice without question is get them your agreement and be on the phone with them to go through it and until they sign it. So I'm not talking about a hard pressure sale, nothing about that, but just be actively engaged. So let's talk practically. So let's say I'm on the phone with Marilyn. Marilyn's one of our branches, but I'm on the phone with Marilyn. She's a prospect. I say, okay, Marilyn, I'm going to send you an email or a text. I'm going to send you a link. And so the link is the link to the e-signature, whether I'm using Adobe or DocuSign, but it's the agreement I need her to complete to enroll, but it's the link. So I want to be on the phone with her. When I send her the link via email or text, I want to stay on the phone with Marilyn while she goes through it until she completes it. So that is by far a best practice. With that being said, what questions do any of you have about these best practices? We started at a very high strategic level. How do you view your involvement with this? Because some of you, we're not on the same page, right? You're in the same role that others are. Others are making over 100,000 a month, and some of you are making zero. Well, why are you making zero? I guess it could be a lot of different things, but I think these bullets is almost a checklist of what you could do to become a top performer, but it starts with your mindset. And then from there, we definitely need to have goals. We recommend having a goal of one a day. It's very attainable. And if you're not committed to enrolling at least one a day, then I think we probably need to outsource some of the business development from your branch so there are people that are more committed to it. So in other words, if you're owning a Domino's and you don't really want to go make pizza today, let's hire someone to make pizzas because it's a missed opportunity otherwise. We talked about we need leads. We need lots of leads. But the problem, there's not a problem getting leads. We know where to get leads, and we've trained on that, and that's right here. So we need lots of leads, not a few leads. When we have a lead, we need to connect with them via phone very quickly. We need to pre-qualify them, but we don't want to pre-qualify them on the wrong things, right? That would be a mistake. Oh, how long have you been in business? Well, is that a requirement? It's not a requirement. Why ask it? What's your personal credit score? It's not a requirement. Why would you ask things that could only throw the conversation askew? Focus on what's relevant. Educate them what it takes to have a fundable business. Because again, I think some of you are borderline, and forgive me for saying this, arrogant. You know exactly what it takes to have a fundable business. You can take anyone off the street, and in 30 to 60 days, you can help them have a fundable business. You know that. But the average person doesn't. So don't make that assumption that they know what you know, because a lot of them don't. And the easiest way to educate them on that is the 4-phase graphic, which you can either give them the YouTube video or use the graphic and teach them yourself. Emphasize that they're going to get their first tranche of funding quickly, get those funding offers right away. And again, I know that different people will get different amount of funding offers. I realize that. Next, minimize their outlay, especially if you're not that confident or competent yet. So bring them in just with a 500 down. That still puts money in your pocket. It's creating the funnel and the whole economic model that we trained. And let's pull that up briefly before we go. The whole economic model that we built was built off the assumption that you're only bringing 500 in, but it's okay. I mean, your end goal is we expect you to make around 26,000 per client, depending upon how many clients per month. If you're doing 8 clients a month, I mean, you're almost at $250,000 a month. Again, I know a lot of you are smart and successful, but how can you truly tell me that an extra $250,000 a month wouldn't help you? Make the $500 refundable, which is just as simple as building it into the deal. Building into the deal guaranteed funding. So in other words, we'll work with them until they have that capital raise of 100,000, 250,000, whatever it is they're looking for. And then lastly, don't just expect the client to be diligent. Get them the agreement while you're on the phone with them and stay on the phone with them until they complete it. Questions, comments, concerns? Marilyn asked how to make it refundable. So there's specific language, and we can help you with the language, and we, of course, have one-on-ones with each of you. So if you need help with the language to accomplish this bullet, let us know. If you need help with the language to accomplish this bullet, let us know. We're obviously here to support you. In closing, there's just a tremendous opportunity to legally, to ethically, to effectively go create fundable businesses, but it's up to you, right? It's not really my success or my failure. We've got to move beyond blaming someone else. It's up to you. It's up to you. If you want to follow these best practices for a month, I fully expect that you'll have $100,000 a month. Now, do you have to do all these? Of course not. You're the CEO of your branch. You do what you want to do, right? You're an adult. But if you follow these best practices, I think you'll have a great month. And I think you'll be motivated, because once you're making an adult income, not saying you're not already, but once you're making an adult income, it's addictive, right? You don't want to stop that because it changes your lifestyle. So with that being said, let us know what we can do, of course, on Chapman Loan Program. You know our phone number, you know our email. We should be scheduling one-on-ones. We need to make sure your clients are taken care of. We do all the implementation, right? You bring the clients to the table, we do all the work. Thanks, everyone. We'll talk to you again Monday morning. Let us know what we can do between now and then, and let's go enroll a client today. Bye-bye.